November is championship month in college football, including, of course, in the Big Ten. How many teams will make the college football playoff? That starts to become uh, uh, an argument that gains some focus starting tonight with the first reveal of the College Football Playoff Committee's rankings. And we will size up the games from this past weekend, look ahead to next weekend, of course, and then again, where the various teams in the Big Ten may stack up in tonight's rankings reveal right here at the Voice of College Football. I want to remind everyone that following the rankings reveal, we will be live with all of you here at approximately 8:30 Eastern Time for all of your Iowa football talk and basketball from the Hawkeye of the Storm with Corey Bratta. Corey, we just finished up the Iowa live show, and of course, the Hawkeyes with a huge date against Oregon. So, folks, check out the live stream that Corey and I just completed over on the Iowa Voice of College Football channel.
Yeah, so entertaining week this past week. There were, just like seems like every week, there were some lopsided games, some close games. And I'll tell you, the most entertaining game was Minnesota-Michigan State. I would have never thought that would be the game that you look back at and say, wow. But honestly, I did you end up watching any of that, Mark?
That was not a priority of mine, but I will say that when I saw that it was tight, because Minnesota jumped out 10-0, then it just kind of stagnated, and Michigan State scored late, and so I checked in, late to see the conclusion of the game to make sure that my guy PJ was safe.
Yeah, your boy PJ. I'll tell you what, I don't want to say Michigan State got screwed, but man, they got one of the worst situations with an official that I've seen since that fair catch thing with Cooper DeJean a few years ago. There was a hold that was called, it was called pass interference on the field, and it was as clear as day. The guy's got I don't know if it was the guy's towel or what, he's tugging on the jersey or the towel of the receiver, and clear as day. And of course, the crowd is upset about the call. It's a Minnesota crowd. There's boos. Fleck, I'm sure, was in the ears of the official. And all of a sudden, they say the call has been changed. There is no foul for pass interference. And those are the ones I'm like, how do you do that? How do you overturn a call like that in that situation? So yeah, you feel bad for Michigan State to some extent. They're now 0-6 in the league, and their schedule doesn't really get much easier. They go to Kinnick here. They also have a game against Penn State that they'll probably lose. Maybe they can get a win that last weekend against Maryland. But Mark, they're on track for maybe having a 1-8 or a 0-9 season in the conference. And hey, patience. It doesn't. How long are you patient with a second-year coach like Jonathan Smith, who potentially ends up in year two exactly what we just outlined? If he's 1-8, 0-9, is he on the hot seat after year two? I think he'd have to at least be feeling some heat. I don't think you can do that nowadays.
It depends what you consider to be on the hot seat. So some people would say the hot seat means that going into year three, he's on the hot seat.
Yes.
It's a do or die. Yes, I agree with that. Absolutely. I don't think he gets fired regardless of what happens this season.
No, I don't think he would get fired this year either. And you tell me, Mark, but with all the big jobs that have opened up, right? Florida, Penn State. You go through the list there, UCLA, LSU. There are too many big jobs available. To me, it'd be a bad time to make a premature, like what Wisconsin did. It hasn't worked with Luke Fickell, but when they made that change at kind of an odd point, you're like, wow, Paul Chryst ain't even struggling that much, and they're getting rid of him. It kind of made sense because they had reason hey, we can go out and get Luke Fickell. Now that hasn't worked, but Luke Fickell was a big job. If there was somebody like that Michigan State was confident they could land out there right now, then sure, maybe make a change after year two. But I think for some of those programs that are 2 to 3 years into a tenure and they're pretty disappointed, but they're not fed up, you're probably going to have to get fed up and wait one more year for this cycle to finish, because a lot of the best names are going to be gobbled up by the best programs.
Yes. So I generally agree with that take, although there might be some separation between the kind of guys that are going to go after and be courted by the LSUs and Floridas and Penn States of the world versus maybe a drop down to a Michigan State or a Wisconsin, possibly. But I generally agree with what you're saying about, yeah, if you're a Michigan State, this is not the season to be looking for, where normally Michigan State might be one of the top 3 jobs available in an off season. It could be like 7th or 8th this year.
And again, I think Michigan State got taken by the officials, but the reality is they're 0-6. Minnesota's going back to a bowl game. Another big storyline that you and I have not discussed on the show, but it's obviously huge in the conference, is you got a 6-3 Nebraska team losing another close game and now losing their quarterback for the year, which will not only affect them in that Iowa game at the end of the season, but will affect their bowl chance, not their bowl chances, but where they position bowl wise. It's a double whammy because their schedule is quite favorable in general comparative to the rest of the league, and they've played with some tight losses. They've played their way out of college football playoff conversation, and there's going to be some fans. I mean, Nebraska fans are crazy, but if there's a time for even a rabid fan base to kind of check out, it might be now. It'll be interesting to see how they respond, because it's not like they didn't compete with USC. I think USC came into that game favored by 6, somewhere in there. Yeah. And Nebraska they could go on the road and beat UCLA and Penn State back to back. And if they do that, then you got momentum going to Iowa, and you're talking about maybe winning 9 games for the first time since the Bo Pelini era. So, there's still a lot to play for there, but a lot of sad people over in Huskerville.
I think Mike Riley snuck in at 9-4.
Did he really? Oh my goodness! Are you serious?
Positive. Yeah.
What year was that? Was that the first year?
16?
How did he do that?
15 or 16.
How did he do that?
I know they were 7-0 going to Ohio State.
Wow. Okay.
And they got a wake-up call 62-3. And then it went off the rails after that, but they still hung together for 9-3. And I think that's the year they lost to Tennessee in a bowl game to finish 9-4.
So I know everybody's hyper fixated on the playoffs. All right.
Yes.
But for a moment, can we just do this? Because I am sort of a traditionalist with postseason. I love bowl games. This is the time of year where you start. I think it's worth at least starting to talk about bowl positioning. And we hardly ever talk about bowl games. You never hear bowl games get talked about because nobody seems to care. But let's talk about some of these teams in this conference, Mark, and where they shape up for bowl projections.
Okay.
So the only team that's eliminated from bowl consideration, assuming no 5-7 teams get into a bowl game, would be Purdue, and they would have to win out even to get to 5-7. So you got Michigan State, Wisconsin, Penn State. I think it's fair to say Michigan State is not winning out. Again, their final 3 are Penn State, Iowa, Maryland. Now, maybe they win 2 of the 3. I think the safe bet is they win 1 of the 3 or don't win any of them. So Michigan State is likely not a bowl team. Wisconsin's likely not a bowl team. They would have to win out. Almost assuredly will not be a bowl team. They've got Washington, Indiana, Illinois, Minnesota. They could end up 0-9 in the league. And then, you talk about the local retention thing. Penn State, that might be the first one going from the bottom of the Big Ten standings up. With Penn State's schedule remaining, can they get to bowl eligibility? They've got Indiana at Michigan State, Nebraska at Rutgers. Can they fight their way to win 3 of their final 4? And do they have enough life in that program? Is there enough belief in that program and pride in that program to do that this late? It'll be interesting.
Yeah. Rutgers has made 2 consecutive bowl games under Greg Schiano. They have to win 2 more games. That's going to be difficult for them. Maryland doing what they do. Here we are with 4 games left for them. They get a split. And then everyone else is safe.
Yeah, Maryland's got to beat they almost assuredly will not beat Michigan. I guess, never know there, but likely will not beat Michigan, likely will not win at Illinois. So they'll have to win at Rutgers, home against Michigan State. Could happen. The interesting scenario here is it's possible that the last game of the season will loom large because it'll be Michigan State and Maryland. And then Penn State Rutgers is also last game of the season. So there could be a couple of teams playing for a bowl game for bowl eligibility, even though most people won't care in the final week of Big Ten play.
And I missed UCLA just because they're higher in the Big Ten standings because they're still 3-2, but they are only 3-5 overall.
Yeah, then they may not make it. In fact, you odds would probably say well, I don't know what the odds would say, but
they've got Ohio State and USC for two games, I know.
And Washington. And they've got Washington. So 3 of their final 4 against ranked teams and the other one's against Nebraska. So they could easily lose out. And then maybe they sneak one of those. Maybe they upset Washington or maybe they beat Nebraska. Boy, Nebraska fans, again, I know Rayola's out, but that would be a devastating loss for the Huskers. So, it'll be interesting to see how many of these teams play their way into bowl eligibility, or if you just see enough dominance from the teams above them, because mathematically there's going to be a couple of the teams that we just named in the bottom 9 that make it, right? I mean, a couple of them are going to make it. And then everybody else that I didn't mention is almost everybody besides Northwestern, who's 5-3. I guess we could have a discussion about them as well, because their schedule is not easy. They get at USC, home against Michigan, at Illinois, home against Minnesota. They got to win one of those to get bowling. So they could miss out still. So it's I don't know that I love bowl games, bowl season. So this is a Big Ten show for a reason, I guess.
Well, I love it too. And but it is funny because I know what's on people's minds are the Big Ten championship game, how many teams are going to make it into the playoffs, what the rankings are. And here we are 12 minutes into the show, and we've discussed the ever important Michigan State Minnesota game and now the bowl scenario for the bottom teams of the Big Ten. So at the top of the conference, again, we're going to see a rankings reveal this week. And this is the most cut and dry conference, unless something crazy happens in college football. You have all sorts of scenarios in every other league, but here, if Indiana and Ohio State hold serve, they're in the Big Ten championship game. The most likely alternate to that would be, of course, Michigan beats Ohio State. And then you've got this 3 or 4-way tie for second place that could be interesting with possibly Iowa involved, Oregon, somebody. But Iowa, Oregon, USC all play each other. So somebody's going to get knocked out, if not all of them, if they do some kind of round robin. USC beats Iowa, but Iowa beats Oregon, then Oregon beats USC kind of
And
deal.
if it's all of them, then Ohio State misses out, which they'll still make the playoff. But with the head-to-head loss to Michigan, it'd be Michigan, Indiana. So, this is. I know we're still several weeks out from this, and we've talked about it on the Iowa channel, Mark. But like Iowa right now, with the loss to Indiana, they would need, if they win out, for them to make the playoff. Somebody sent this to me. Maybe we didn't talk about it. I think it was my guy Kyle Spence, who helps on my channel. How about I read this to you, Mark? This was from CBS Sports, but Kyle shared this with me over the weekend. Okay, so CBS Sports went through these different projections and scenarios. Iowa, of course, gets Oregon, USC, along with Nebraska and Michigan State. Indiana wins out. Ohio State loses to Michigan. Iowa would then be in a 3-way tie for second place with Ohio State and Michigan. Do you want to guess who would make the playoff in that scenario?
Who would make the Big Ten championship game?
I'm sorry. You're right. Who would make the Big Ten championship in that scenario?
Iowa, Michigan, Ohio State are tied?
Yes. If Iowa were to win out,
yes.
Iowa did not play Michigan or Ohio State.
Yes. Nobody played.
Ohio State played Michigan, so you'd have to go to tiebreaker 3.
It goes to some kind of common opponents, doesn't it?
Right. Iowa would get the tiebreaker in that scenario because its record against common opponents with Michigan would be 4-0. Excuse me. This is a typo they have here.
They would
Iowa's record. I'm trying to comb through this typo.
Michigan.
Ohio
Michigan lost to
State.
USC. So that's where Iowa would have the advantage. Michigan lost to USC.
Yeah, and Ohio State lost to Michigan. So I don't know how that works with a 3-team tie, but I'll read verbatim what CBS Sports says. This is a typo. Iowa would get the nod since its record against common opponents with Michigan would be 4-0 versus the Wolverines 3-1, lost to the USC. Okay, never mind. That's not a typo. I still don't know why Ohio State would be eliminated from that discussion. Maybe I'm just not thinking straight. I haven't had enough coffee today, but
yeah, I'm not getting that either because it's treated as a 3-way.
Right.
Yeah, they don't eliminate Ohio State because they lost to Michigan.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
But that's what this says. That's according to CBS Sports, Iowa would get in if it's a 3-way tie between Ohio State. So, because it's interesting, last hour you and I were talking about if Michigan were to win out, that could knock Iowa out of the college football playoff race as a 10-2 team. And so then at that point, I'll tell you what, at that point, the great thing about it in some regards is Iowa would get a chance. They'd be like, well, they're 10-2. They're not getting in as an at-large. We can accept that because the committee is going to rather put in Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana. But they happen to win the tiebreaker scenario, so they're going to get a chance to play for a Big Ten title and an AQ. That is an interesting scenario. So you could almost argue that 10-2 guarantees that Iowa either makes the playoff as an at-large or gets into the Big Ten championship game. Right?
I believe that Iowa gets the nod because they would have the highest within the conference, the highest ranked win, or I'm sorry, the highest ranked loss. They would have lost to Indiana, who is the first place number 1 seed, where Michigan's loss is further down and Ohio State's loss is further down the rung, the chain.
Yeah.
I think that's the next tiebreaker.
It's just an interesting scenario. But that's one scenario. We could also see a scenario where Oregon wins out, Michigan wins, and now you have an Oregon, Ohio State, and Michigan tie, or maybe it's USC that wins out, including a win over Iowa. And you have Oregon does play USC though, right? So, one of those teams will be eliminated because of that matchup. Say Iowa loses this weekend, and then it comes down to Iowa, USC. Well, it comes down to USC, Oregon ultimately. But my point is, enough of these teams could battle one another out, like you said, the round robin format here. That if Iowa were to lose to Oregon, and then Iowa beats USC, USC beats Oregon, then Michigan, they're all by themselves. It would be a head-to-head. If they were to win out, it'd be them versus Ohio State. It would come down to that game to go to the Big Ten championship game. But I think at that point, it's fair to say Michigan's playing for their lives regardless, because if they lose, they're not making the playoff at 9-3. If they win, they are, regardless of what happens in the Big Ten title game.
Ed Rogers, we love you being here. Always enjoy your comments there in the chat. I don't know what you're talking about here, though. 5 Big Ten teams. 5 Big Ten teams are not making the playoffs, if that's what you're referring to there. The real MVP actually has it right. If you're a Big Ten fan and to be safe, the safest route for the Big Ten is just to have Oregon just clear the deck and get to the playoff, and then there's going to be 3 Big Ten teams in the playoff. Otherwise, you're kind of playing with fire. That there could be 4, but it's more likely actually that it would regress to 2 because there'd be too much carnage otherwise.
It would be, as I've said this before, it would be interesting if an Iowa won out and somehow snuck into the Big Ten title game and loses at 10-3. You would have a 10-3 Iowa, a 10-2 Michigan, and maybe a 10-2 Oregon, or 10-2 Oregon would be the only other scenario if they beat USC. Then what does the committee do with that?
Who was 10-2? Oregon, Iowa.
Yeah, it could be 10-2. Oregon could be 10-2. Michigan could be 10-2. Iowa would be 10-3. If Iowa beats Oregon and wins out, and then Oregon beats USC and wins the rest of their games, Michigan beats Ohio State. Iowa would get in to the Big Ten championship game, lose to Indiana potentially. Indiana and Ohio State are in, but then what do you do with 10-3 Iowa, non-champion but Big Ten qualifier, and then 10-2 Michigan and Oregon?
Actually, your backdoor scenario there is your best case for the Big Ten is that Iowa does all that, but they win the Big Ten championship game because Indiana is going to get in anyway. So
But
they're both in. Ohio State's going to get in, and then maybe Michigan still gets in at 10-2. That's how you get 4 in.
So then you lose you leave Oregon out at 10-2.
They've got the worst resume.
Okay, I'm just saying.
They're going to lose a head-to-head to Iowa, so they're going to get left out.
They do have the weakest non-conference.
Yes, and Michigan would have just beaten Ohio State.
Well, I shouldn't say that. Didn't Ohio State? Was it Ohio State or Michigan this year that played nobody in the non-conference? No, Ohio State played Texas. Who did Michigan play this year?
Oklahoma.
Okay, so that was last year. I was thinking of Michigan playing nobody. So you're right. And Indiana, Indiana's in regardless. Excuse me, if they win out, and even losing the Big Ten title game. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm acting like Iowa would have no chance in that game. It would be a very heavy Indiana fan. Lucas Oil Stadium, I would think, because how far is Bloomington from Indy? Not that far. But boy, that would be an interesting rematch, wouldn't it? As well as dominant as Indiana has been against everybody else, Iowa got them at home, pushed them to their limits. You could argue if Mark Gronowski doesn't go down, maybe they win that game. But could they do that again? Could they be that competitive with a team like Indiana, who has been so dominant all year in every other game? Could they be that competitive again, this time on a neutral indoor field with a de facto road crowd? That would be an interesting, scary thing.
Just for accuracy purposes, since that is one of our goals here at the Voice of College Football, yes, Gregory, Michigan played Texas last year. They lost 31-12. Ohio State did not play anyone last year in the non-conference.
And it was the year before that, Michigan played nobody.
Yes, the 2 years prior, both years of 2021 and 22, Michigan played.
Okay.
Wait, I'm sorry. 22 and 23, Michigan played no one, but a bunch of Hawaii, Colorado State kind of games. Ohio State, for the record, I'll go to their defense. They had Washington scheduled. The game got canceled because obviously Washington joined the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Adam, what you got for us tonight, Adam? Mark, of the Big Ten teams, ask yourself, does this team have a realistic chance of winning the national championship? If the answer is no, they should not get in. And that goes for every other conference. Well, Adam, that's a very subjective way.
Very subjective.
That I just simply get the leeway just to say,
I'm just curious. I'm just curious. Is that so? We want a playoff, right? But are we just anti NCAA tournament, like on the basketball side? Because nobody believes that 16 seed Texas Christian or Texas Southern or 14 seed Grand Canyon are winning a national championship. So do we want to just eliminate those teams from making it? And he probably is, and I don't know. You know Adam better than I do. I'm guessing he doesn't like the fact that a G5 team gets in every year.
He does not.
Okay, well there you go. So just that's fine. Every year, why don't we just I'll say the same thing I always say. Let's just make a playoff based upon talent ratings. We won't even play the season. We'll just make a playoff every year of Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Texas. Who am I missing, Mark? Maybe Oregon or USC, Notre Dame. We'll throw them in the mix. Yeah, why don't we do that? Miami. I mean, resumes do matter. I just don't understand. People had a right to be, the Florida State fans 2 years ago had a right to be upset with that scenario. I understand why the committee did what they did, but they basically did what Adam is implying should be done with every team. Well, we don't believe this team can beat such and such a team, so we're just going to subjectively rate so and so versus another potential playoff team. If you earn your way there, you earn your way there. That's my opinion.
Adam believes even to the extent that there should be 7 and 5 teams considered for the playoff if they play like a brutal schedule.
What's a brutal? What is a brutal schedule? Real quick, what's a brutal schedule?
An SEC schedule.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's put a non-bowl eligible Florida team in the playoff. That'd be a very good situation, Durrell.
No, it's I think record does matter at some point, but you also have to understand that with the direction the sport's going, 8-4, 9-3 teams are going to make the college football playoff. It's similar in basketball, how you have 30-5 teams and 31-4 teams left out over teams that go 18-14, because we know the league is significantly harder because of the non-conference results. And unfortunately for Big Ten man over here, that's going to happen to you all this year. Michigan at 10-2, I'm not sure they get in over a 9-3 Oklahoma or Texas team, because Michigan's schedule is so soft that it's just not even worth it, for a lack of a better term.
The committee is going to value brand, though, Durrell. That's my issue with that opinion. You could be right, and Oklahoma is a strong brand, but I do think 10-2, a fresh win against Ohio State, they're in.
Maybe. It depends to me how far Ohio State falls, because I think there's this baked-in assumption that since they're Ohio State, that even if they lose to Michigan, they're going to remain a top 3 or 4 or 5 team. I could see Ohio State falling to 7 or 8. Look at their schedule they play if they lose to Michigan. Their best win would be against a 9-3 Texas team, and then their second best win would be against who? Washington. I mean, they're a great team. Nebraska, exactly my point. They're a great team, but are they just clearly head and shoulders of their schedule better than everyone else? No, they're not.
Let me ask you this question before I head on out of here. If the chaos scenario that I just outlined a few minutes ago were to transpire, and that is Iowa were to win over Oregon then wins out, eliminating USC, and Michigan upsets Ohio State, theoretically, then Iowa would make the Big Ten title game. You have Ohio State and Indiana, who are basically locks at that point, regardless of what happens in the Big Ten title game, and Iowa loses to Indiana. Okay, so then you have a 10-3 Iowa team, you have a 10-2 Michigan team, and a 10-2 Oregon team. Do none of those 10-win teams get in?
I think that's probably the most likely scenario.
That's just nuts. I'm sorry.
I hate to say it. There's going to be, in that scenario, I wouldn't be surprised if the SEC got 6 teams in the college football playoff, because Texas and Oklahoma at 9-3 are just going to have so many better wins than any of those teams have.
There would be so much. Maybe you're right. Maybe that would happen, but I think that would create so much backlash. I don't know what it would look like when I say backlash, but these two conferences are the most powerful conferences in the country. There would be a lot of Big Ten backlash in the offseason.
Well, maybe they should have won the games against the SEC and should have won games against the ACC and Big 12 instead of crying and complaining and going 6-8 in non-conference games. How about you win your freaking games? How about that?
Illinois went down and took care of Duke.
Oh, my goodness. Illinois went to Duke and won. Stop the presses.
Iowa ACC or Big Ten ACC. So, hey.
How did Iowa do in non-conference play, by the way?
How did Iowa do? You know how Iowa did.
They lost. They lost.
So what? They play 9. How many? Hey, we're going to go down this road again. How many conference games does the SEC play?
The SEC plays 8 conference.
Okay. So you have okay. So the Big Ten plays 9.
Yeah.
So
that Purdue win is going to be the difference.
If we want to grade Iowa on the same scale that you're grading every SEC team, then let's look at how Iowa did in their first 4 games. They played 2 non-conference of Power 5 opponents, and they went 1-1. If we're going to look at it in that regard.
Look at the team. Okay, first off, you can't just use power conference as a terminology and use it as a catch-all
terminology. Because
because some of these power conference teams are horrendous, like Florida State, for example, Maryland, and you got elite teams.
No, I'm saying if we're grading Iowa on the same scale as an SEC team that plays 8 conference games, then I'm using one of Iowa's conference games as their non-conference 4th opponent.
But DeReal's argument is that the SEC played so much better outside the conference than the Big Ten did, and I've been talking that the entire season
collectively. But when we get down to grading these teams for playoff positioning, I don't care what the conference as a whole did. It matters to some extent, right? When you're grading the
because it's a reflection upon how difficult the schedule is.
It is a reflection. It is a reflection, but we're still weighing teams individually. Is all I'm saying. So
yeah,
but when Georgia goes and beats,
we're evaluating an Iowa team that beat, let's say, Minnesota as one of its better wins, and Minnesota loses to Cal outside the conference.
Yep. Well, they also, but I hear what you're saying. But in that scenario, if you're the committee, you have to look at the fact that Iowa also destroyed Minnesota by 40.
Oh my goodness, they destroyed Minnesota. Woo!
You just were bringing up. He just brought up that Minnesota went out to Cal and lost. So if we're going to have that discussion, then I'm going to say, well, I don't. Yeah, that doesn't help their strength of schedule, but they also pulled their pants right off and threw them in the dumpster. So
that's going to look. The reason that matters is it'll look good in the metrics and the predictive analytics and stuff. But in terms of a resume like thing, beating them by 40 or 25 or 75 is basically the same thing to me.
Hey,
they're not a good football team.
Who does Kentucky play next week?
Kentucky?
Next week.
Honestly, don't know because we're so bad. Man, we're going to play some.
Who do they play?
They just beat Auburn.
Who do they play next week? Hello?
What? Play Florida. I was making sure I had it right. They play Florida.
This week or next?
This week.
No, I said next week.
They play Florida. Oh, next week? They play Tennessee Tech.
Oh, okay.
But Kentucky's not in the college football playoff race, so why does their results matter?
First of all, because every SEC team is doing that. So what's the difference? Whether you're playing Tennessee Tech, Tennessee Martin, or Charleston Southern, what's the difference?
I don't know that all of them are.
Okay. Who's not? There's like two. What? Alabama played Wisconsin and who?
Why does this conversation even matter at all? Because the SEC is having so many great results out of conference that they can afford to play a cupcake. Like this, what do you want them to do? If they played instead,
as I've said to you before, it's an unbalanced way of evaluating a four-game non-conference schedule versus a 3. That's point number one.
So you think if Georgia went and played Mississippi State, that would alter the playoff race? Is that what I'm hearing?
Say that again.
If Georgia, instead of playing whoever their cupcake opponent is, played Mississippi State.
Example, you're bringing up the worst team in the SEC.
Mississippi State. Mississippi State beat Arizona State, who's one of the best teams in the Big 12. Mississippi State is a good football team.
We're not talking about the Big 12. And I don't want to hear about this transitive property garbage. So
it's not transitive property; it's a result.
Transitive property.
Mississippi State went and beat Arizona State. That tells us how good Mississippi State is.
Yeah, I didn't Ole Miss almost lose to Wazoo, who got blown out by North Texas.
Yeah, and that was a bad result for Washington. That was a bad result for Ole Miss, and that's the reason that if Ole Miss goes 9-3, they're not going to make the playoffs. Whereas most of these SEC
teams almost beat Ole Miss. And Wazoo got blown away by North Texas.
Right.
I don't want to hear this. Well, this team beat this team and this team beat this team. So that doesn't work.
Well, let's go back to your original point. You look at the teams and how they perform. And based on how individual teams play is what you determine the college football playoffs. And I'm telling you, that game, and with Ole Miss struggling against some of these mid to lower SEC teams, is the reason they can't go 9-3 and make the college football playoff. Unlike Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, for example. If those teams went 9-3, they would probably make the college football playoff.
By the way, thank you for throwing this up here. Just this week, right? This is just this week, Mark?
No. This is the week that you're talking about, that they usually take a week off.
No, Kentucky's
prior to the rivalry games.
No, Kentucky's playing Vanderbilt. We're talking about the week where Kentucky plays Tennessee Tech.
Okay. The SEC is criticized for taking a quote-unquote week off, and that is typically the week before all the rivalry games, Alabama, Auburn, et cetera, on the final weekend of the season. So I pulled up the schedule for the SEC the second to last weekend of the season.
Okay. Yes. But again, like I said, next week, Kentucky plays Tennessee Tech and Kentucky plays Tennessee Tech and Tennessee plays New Mexico State.
All right.
So they're all getting one of these weeks. If they're all coming in the second to last week or not, they're all getting a week.
Yes, I can't pull them all up at the same time. So I'm basically this is the traditional SEC scrimmage week off. I was just pointing out that not all of them do that the final weekend of the season, that there are some legitimate games, i.e. Kentucky, Vandy, Tennessee, Florida, etc.
I didn't say they did. I didn't say they did
Oklahoma.
the second week of the end of the year. But all I'm saying is you can't have it both ways, Drill. You can't act like, well, they were dominant in the out of conference, but then not take into account that they play one less conference game. Like that is a factor. That's a choice, right? Just like the Big Ten chooses to play 9 games, whether that's right or wrong, good or bad, they choose to do that. That has to be in the conversation.
It's in the conversation, but it depends what those teams that they play that 9th conference game does out of conference schedule determines how good that win's going to be. So if Minnesota went out and beat Cal, that would be a significantly better win. But since they lost to Cal, it's not. It's about individual teams.
I don't have anything else to say.
I mean, listen, man. I hate to say
it's all going to. By the way, most of this is going to work itself out anyways. Because
no, it's not.
A lot of a lot of it will. There'll be a lot of cannibalization. It's unlikely that it happens the way I just described. But I'll say it again. If we're talking about Iowa, if Iowa goes 10-2, beats USC on the road, beats Oregon, I would venture. My guess is they're in. If Iowa loses in the Big Ten championship game and ends up 10-3, they're out. I don't know what's going to happen with Michigan because they have a weak schedule. I think Oregon's got a brand, but their non-conference was really bad. So maybe in that scenario, you're right. Maybe they only get 2 teams in at that point.
Yeah, 2 is more likely than 4.
At that point.
And 3 is most likely, but Oregon must run the table for them to get 3. Like if Oregon loses a game, they're on thin ice. The Big Ten 2 is real possibility. Because
so so basically you're telling me that Iowa has no chance of making the college football playoff unless they win the Big Ten championship game. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm saying, well, that's their best path by far. I think an at-large bid for them is less than like 2%.
It's an automatic path.
Right. That's why it's their best path.
It's okay.
That's everybody's best path.
I'm talking about an at-large. I'm talking about an at-large.
Yeah, it's like 2 or 1%. It's not going to happen.
Oh, I totally disagree with you, but okay.
They're going to pick
your SEC bias and just run along.
No, they're going to pick Vanderbilt over you guys.
Oh, okay. All right. I would love to see them take a 9-3 Vanderbilt team.
No, they're 10-2 Vanderbilt. If they win out,
I'd like to see them take a 10. Okay.
They're definitely in a 10-2 Vanderbilt. They're a lock.
Well, the SEC will have. Let's see here. The SEC will have. I'm looking through. Let me look through the standings here. And Mark, you know some of these teams who play one another, but Texas A&M is virtually a lock.
Correct.
Alabama, Georgia, right? And then Ole Miss is the only other one-loss team. So you're implying that Vanderbilt's going to win at Tennessee,
right?
And then win at home against Auburn and Kentucky. That could happen.
Yeah, that's probably going to happen. I mean,
it's. Okay, so why are you so confident that Vanderbilt's going to win at Tennessee? Just curious.
Because over the course of the season, Vanderbilt has played much better than Tennessee. Okay, Tennessee's best win is against what? Mississippi State?
My guess is that Tennessee will be favored in that game. So the odds makers will probably say you're wrong on that. But fine, if you think that's going to happen, fine. They could end up 10-2. Tennessee is. Again, unless you think a 9-3 team is getting in.
No, a 9-3 team can't get in. It's not Tennessee.
Okay, Oklahoma is 7-2, right? They finish off the year at Alabama versus Missouri and versus LSU.
Yeah, if they go 9-3, they're in. They're in.
All right, I'm done with this conversation.
I can't take the playoff predictor has it at like 90%. They're in.
The homerism crap when you play. When you the 9-3, they're in over a 10-2 Big Ten team, whether it's Oregon, Iowa. You're just wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong.
ESPN's playoff indicator put in a 9-3 Oklahoma team.
I don't care if it's my mother's playoff indicator. I don't care. Let's wait to see what the playoff committee does. Let's see what they do with the rankings tonight. I think a lot of people, I'm not saying you are, Darryl, but they get way too caught up in the polls and I'm not saying, Mark, I know you weigh all these resumes, but how long have we had how many straight weeks with 8 to 9 SEC teams in the playoff or in the top 25, and Washington's out and Iowa's out. Let's see what the committee does tonight with their rankings, because we may get an inkling of how the committee views these two conferences, and it might be slightly different than you think, and it might be slightly different than I think. But let's wait, because nobody cares what those polls say.
I'm not looking at polls. I'm looking at results.
Fine. But the polls do matter. The polls that matter are the ones that come out from the college football.
Oh, obviously, those are the only polls that matter.
Let's just see what happens. We'll know in an hour and a half, right?
Yeah.
Or was
well, we still got this UConn Louisville game at halftime, so it's going to come on after that. But no, my point is look at the wins that Oklahoma would have at 9-3. Look at the wins Iowa would have at 10-2, and then look at the metrics for Oklahoma and Iowa, or Oklahoma Oregon, or Oklahoma USC. It's all Oklahoma. And you may not like it, and this is one of the reasons I was against a 12-team playoff in the first place, is you're going to have 9-3, 8-4 SEC teams get in, but this is the path everybody decided to go on. And now I'm pointing it out saying, hey, this team, based on all the requirements, is significantly better than this other team. It's like, well, it's bias. Well, maybe it's the results on the field.
I think a big difference in this is if you take the borderline bubble SEC teams, they won their out-of-conference game. If you take the two most damaging results for the Big Ten as it stands right now is Iowa losing to Iowa State and USC losing to Notre Dame. Those are the two teams that could have put themselves in such better position if they would have just won those games.
You also got Michigan losing to Oklahoma.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
However, Iowa lost that game at Iowa State by 3. And we talked about this last hour early in the year. So like there are other factors here that the committee may look at when evaluating. Well, yeah, that was a missed opportunity for them to get a resume building win. But then I keep hearing about how, well, the SEC, we need to look at resume, not record. So there's a 3-point loss at Iowa State. Now that loss isn't looking any better as Iowa State keeps losing games, but I don't know how cut and dry the committee is going to look at, well, they missed this opportunity. They missed this opportunity. So plus to the SEC for winning that game, narrowly winning that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how the committee is going to weigh those losses.
Where do you think Corey Iowa's going to be ranked? I'm going to say 23rd.
Well, I asked Mark last hour. He's got them at 18.
Well, that's where I've got them.
No, I don't think they'll be that high. I think they'll be they'll be fringe. They'll probably be like 23. Yeah, 23 is a good prediction. 23, 24.
So they'll be significantly behind.
I would
almost
prefer
all the teams we're talking about.
Here's what's crazy. Even though I know it's maybe an indicator of how the committee values Iowa, as an Iowa guy, I would actually rather Iowa be unranked. And I'm glad they were unranked in the AP poll. I wish the college football playoff poll didn't come out until next week, because Iowa's about to play the most important game of the season. They lose this week, they're done anyways. And I've been saying that since week 1, right? But yeah, I mean, it's probable that they'll be ranked after tonight. And then all of a sudden now you have a ranked matchup on national television on Saturday. So I don't think that goes to Iowa's favor. Not that they can't win. They'll still be big. They'll still be underdogs. Vegas doesn't care about rankings. They're still a touchdown underdog at home. And they're playing a top 6. We'll see where Oregon's ranked in the playoff committee poll.
Yeah, I've got a bad feeling about Oregon. Like, Oregon to me is riding a lot from that Penn State win early season, what we thought Penn State was going to be. And now they're 0-5 in the Big Ten. It wouldn't shock me if Oregon is sit behind most of these 2-loss SEC teams. It would not shock me if they're 13 or 12 or something like that. At all.
I doubt they'll be that low, but you seem to be an SEC favorite.
I'm not. I'm going by the results. This is like college baseball.
You are an SEC fan, Doreen.
I talk about the results on the field and analyze and dissect them to my best of my ability. And what the sport is going to turn into is similar to college baseball, where the 13th SEC team at 14-16 in SEC play is going to get in over the third best conference baseball team who went 20-10 or 23-7, because the SEC is just that much better.
Okay.
I'm not joking. This happens every year in baseball, and it happens every year in basketball. But because it's football, people are like, whoa, we got to go by record. That's not how it's been in any other collegiate sport.
I believe in a balanced approach to it, Drill.
Oh,
and swinging the
there is
pendulum.
balance. This is the balance.
As well, I don't believe you're being totally balanced, but swinging the pendulum from one end to the other does not create balance.
Yeah, I agree with that. But if this was truly unbalanced, you could have 7 SEC teams in the playoff this year, maybe 8. Yeah, I mean, listen,
we don't know that the committee sees it that way. We don't know that this committee sees it that way. We know that a bunch of AP voters who happen to write for some publication somewhere in America have decided to pencil in votes based on scores and, brand names and colors of uniforms. So we don't really know what the playoff committee, what they think of these conference teams until the rankings come out tonight. Then we'll get at least an idea.
Well, let me ask, is there any SEC team currently ranked in the AP or coaches poll that you say they should not be ranked? Any of them?
And I don't do rankings, but
you watch the games and you see the little number beside all the SEC teams. So is there one that's like
Tennessee? I mean, what win does Tennessee have?
Yeah, Mississippi State.
Who have they beaten?
I do not have Tennessee ranked.
Who have they played? Who have they beaten?
Mississippi State.
Oh my Lord! I'm done here. I can't take it. I can't take it.
I'm telling you who their best win is. It's Mississippi State.
Okay, so there's your answer.
Oh,
they have no business being in the top 25. They have no business being in the top 25. They have no business.
That's fine. Place them with Iowa. Put them in the top 25. Would that solve all your problems? If we just switch those 2 teams, would that suddenly change the landscape of the sport?
Hey, you asked the question and I answered it.
I'm just giving you a follow-up.
Missouri right now. Missouri has a win against, let's see, South Carolina. They have the win against Kansas, but they don't really have any great wins either.
No, but they played Bama really well. Like that Bama game showed that they were.
And Iowa played Indiana really well. I don't want to hear about that.
Yeah, hey, listen, Iowa should be ranked. I would have them ranked. Iowa's a good team.
But no, I'm just saying, resume-wise, does Missouri have a better resume than Iowa? I don't know. I don't think so.
I think they both should be ranked, in my personal opinion.
I've got Missouri 1 spot ahead of Iowa just because the strength of the Vandy game and the Bama game that they played so well and were close. That's what I went with there. But I would have no issue with Iowa being ahead of Mizzou.
And let's see, who are we missing that's in the top 25? Texas. Obviously, Texas is, they have the win against Oklahoma and they have the win against Vandy.
Yeah. They're easily a top 25 team.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not saying anybody else, but I'd argue that Missouri and Tennessee could easily not be ranked when we get the rankings tonight.
I'd be shocked if Missouri wasn't ranked.
Well,
but that's what this is all about. So I guess I'll be looking forward to the cope of like 8 or 9 SEC teams be ranked in the college football playoff in an hour after this beat down by UConn's over.
I do a live stream of me curled up in the fetal position in the corner, just sobbing.
Hey, this is what everybody wanted when they expanded the playoffs, right? This is what everyone wanted.
Well, again,
nobody thought these playoff spots was going to go to like Tulane and Memphis and Washington, right?
Boise
State. Yeah, Boise State's completely out of it. By the way, they lost again. They're completely out. So, and you expand it to 16, you could get 9 or 10 SEC teams in, by the way. Just, it's the more you expand, the more you got to give the middle depth of the SEC and Big Ten space. It's not going to go to the top ACC or the top Big 12 or the top G5. They just say that to sell them on this idea that it's possible. It's like a fantasy or a dream when it's not in reality, because every other sport shows us the path.
All right, Mark.
The ACC obviously had 2 results that they did not need last weekend. Yeah, I know you need to run, Corey. Thanks for being here.
Drill, appreciate the time, sir, as always.
Yeah, no problem. Enjoyed the conversation. I'll be thoughts and prayers for you in an hour when you're in the fetal position.
All right, Real. So what are you telling us about this programming situation?
So UConn's currently playing Louisville in women's basketball. The score is 55-27. At the conclusion of this game, shortly after, will be the playoff rankings.
Oh, so it's only 7 Eastern right now. This game should be over when?
It's 5 minutes to go in the third quarter, and the quarters are 10 minutes. So it'll probably be about half an hour maybe 45 minutes if it's my
Gotcha.
guess. Since
Okay.
it's such a blowout, the fourth quarter should go by pretty
All right.
quickly.
Well, we will take one other quick call. Appreciate you calling, Daryl, but we'll be back when the rankings are revealed.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for
Daryl.
having me on and talking to
Of course.
Corey. Enjoyed the debate.
And Muley, we'll get to you real quick, but I'm going to turn it around here, so we'll be back very shortly. Muley, what's going on?
What's good, Mark? How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Trying to process everything. A lot was discussed just now. Just to get into it, I mean, obviously, I do think how Dario views some of these other teams and some of these non-SEC teams, I think he's a bit harsh on them and kind of underrates them a bit. But I do think when with the data we have in terms of valuing out of conference, because that's really how we understand the true strength of the conferences, right? Is a very limited section of out of conference games. And when you do have results like Mississippi State beating Arizona State, or even like Auburn, Baylor is not a good team particularly, but they have played a relatively hard Big 12 schedule, and they beat Baylor by 2 touchdowns. And then when you look and you saw all those teams, they're losing all their games close. I mean, Auburn dropped a horrible loss to Kentucky, which that's a different thing because I kind of saw that coming because it happened last year when they benched their quarterback and then their offense was just even worse as a result. I don't think they should have just benched Jackson Arnold, but that's besides the point. But my thing is there has to be something here that makes us say, okay, looking at these results, we can tell that these bottom SEC teams, I mean, it may not even be the best to assume actually because it's such limited data, but the bottom of the SEC teams, and you compare to the bottom of, let's say, the Big Ten, where, let me see, so like Rutgers beat Ohio by 3. I don't know how good Ohio is going to turn out, but they beat Ohio by 3. I mean, Ohio beat West Virginia, but West Virginia was awful early in the season. Who else? Minnesota losing to Cal is a big one in my opinion because I don't think Cal is particularly good. And now you're having a situation where, okay, now it's a team in the Big Ten losing to a not so good team in the ACC. Maybe Cal finishes higher, but their only wins are against like Boston College and North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I know what Drew is saying is a little too harsh. There are plenty of quality teams in every conference, but at some point you got to at least give credit to these SEC teams because of that. Like even some of the bad losses for say like Arkansas losing to Memphis is a bad loss. When you see how they lost to Memphis, well, on one hand you can say the way they lost is terrible too, but then at the same time Memphis is now coming off.
Sure.
Yeah.
And if you make a comparison, Arkansas is one of the worst teams in the SEC. They lost to Memphis 32-31. They had an 18-point lead. They could have won the game. They were goal to go when they fumbled late in the game. Compare that to a Northwestern team who's middle of the pack in the Big Ten right now. They're 5-4 overall, and they lost to Tulane by 3 touchdowns.
Yes.
So that's a fairly comparable situation there. The bottom line, and I got to run, but the bottom line, and you can always call back, we'll be back on in like 90 minutes. The bottom line is that the SEC won its out of conference games and really only suffered one inexcusable loss, and that's Alabama lost to Florida State. Otherwise, there are only few losses are very understandable. You know, Texas losing by a touchdown in Columbus is not exactly shameful. So their losses are not bad. And they're 12-4 outside the conference against the other power conferences. And the Big Ten is 6-8. And if the likes of Michigan, USC, and Iowa get left out of the playoff, they can directly look at their out of conference game and say, well, we should have beat Oklahoma Iowa State and Notre Dame. That's the reason we got left out of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Correct. And yeah, good points. We can follow up later on this.
Okay, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Have a good one, Mark.
You too. All right. We want to get to these super chats. We've got Adam chiming in with this one. Name one national champion in the last 25 years that would not have yielded a yes to my question. Well, that's impossible to answer because I would have to put myself in position to answer that question in the first week of November of 2024, 2023, 2022, 2021, and then think about who won the national championship and whether I could have said yes. But you're talking about the team that eventually won the national championship. Your question before in your statement was about a team that could possibly win a national championship. Obviously, the team that ended up winning the national championship, that team is on a completely different level than the teams that could possibly win a national championship. Last year, for example, Ohio State proved to be the best team. Well, who could have won a national championship last year? Georgia, Notre Dame, Penn State, maybe. You could argue a few other teams could. Texas could have won a national championship under a different scenario. Oregon could have won a national championship under a different scenario if they would have replayed or had different brackets with different teams matching up against each other. So that's putting it in a different light there. Yes, I would have stated most likely in early November, been given the eventual national champion and asked, could that team win a national championship? I would have said yes. That doesn't mean that there aren't other teams, because there are, that you would state they could win a national championship. Hopefully that makes sense. Dave says, I know Iowa is better than Missouri, Tennessee. Dave, you don't know that. That's a foolish statement. Sorry, Dave. Please take that one back. You don't know that Iowa is better than Missouri or Tennessee. No, we don't know that. We don't know that. We don't know that. You can have an opinion that you think they're better. You think they're better. What if I got on here and said, Missouri and Tennessee are definitely better than Iowa? I would be stupid to say that. I could take up an argument for any one of those three teams being better than the other two easily. If you said, okay, Mark, we're going to give you Tennessee, argue against the other two, or we're going to give you Iowa, or we're going to give you Missouri. We don't know who is there. There is not much distinguishing those three teams. Not much at all. Those are the two most overrated SEC schools. Possibly. You're probably right there, but that doesn't mean that they're not better than Iowa. I don't know. I would tend to list those three teams exactly the way you did. I think that Iowa's the best out of those three, and then Missouri's second, and then Tennessee's third, I believe. Tennessee certainly is the weakest resume out of the three. But would I put my mortgage on Iowa beating Tennessee if they played this weekend? Heck no. Not hardly. Toss up. Okay. Appreciate you being here. We will try to time it up as best we can when the rankings become available. We'll be here to take your calls and questions here at the Voice of College Football.